Hello everybody, welcome to my channel, The Real Super Sam. Today I am reviewing another episode of Spiderman The Animated Series, and I hope you enjoy. Ah yes, The Menace of Mysterio, an episode I had to see again, and try to undo my previous opinions of it, and see it fresh with new eyes this time. Usually I would start with an overall plot of the episode, but this episode is different because it is important to me. Why? Because it is Mysterio's first and one of his rare times being in the show, and Mysterio, who is my favorite Spider-Man villain and my second favorite supervillain in all of comics. In the past, I didn't like this episode because it was boring to me, basically just his first appearance from the comic book put into animation form, but seeing this again, I realized I was completely wrong. Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, is an A-list Spider-Man villain in the series, but he was rarely used. They switched things up, and they finally, in the 5th episode, did a superhero origin story. The jokes aren't as boring as I remembered, and the animation was surprisingly good. It had to be special for this one because of Mysterio and the use of special effects. They also give Mysterio a brand new origin and weapon, which I actually like. Anyway, on with the story. So, Amazing Spider-Man issue 13 was Mysterio's first appearance in the comic books, and that's basically what this episode started off as. It started with Spider-Man committing a robbery in a museum. The next day, Peter Parker finds out and goes to the scene of the crime, and Mysterio shows up there and tells everyone that he will take down the Spider-Man menace. This is Mysterio's first time in the TV show, so no one knows who he is. J. Jonah Jameson is suspicious of Mysterio's activity. Then Mysterio shows off his power, and then disappears. Also, that's where this picture shows up. It actually happens twice in the episode. That night, the imposter Spider-Man is back, and luckily Spider-Man goes after him in the mall and learns the imposter was an illusion from Mysterio. He then challenges Mysterio, and he accepts to fight him on the Brooklyn Bridge. He tells Spider-Man that they'll fight at the same place Spidey ruined him. When Spider-Man arrives, Spidey sees that the public down below hates him. They believe the real Spider-Man, him, committed those crimes. The fight shows off Mysterio's powers, and I think it is one of the most iconic Mysterio scenes ever. Maybe even one of the most iconic superhero fights ever. He beats Spider-Man and makes him fall into the river down below. The next morning doesn't go well for Spider-Man as Mary Jane calls him because he missed their date last night. Spider-Man, after being hated by everyone in the city and having no life for Peter Parker, all because of Spider-Man, decides to quit and takes off his Spider-Man costume and throws it in the closet. Just then, as if by fate, Detective Terry Lee is at Spider-Man's door wondering where he is, or where Spider-Man is, and that she wants Peter Parker's help to find him because he took all of Spider-Man's pictures, and she wants to help prove that Spider-Man is innocent. Then they go through Spider-Man's origin story that everyone knows, so I'm not going to say it. The reason for it was a reminder that because of the death of Uncle Ben, he never turned his back on anyone, which is what he'd be doing to the entire city if he quit. So he comes back. Spider-Man figures out who Mysterio really is, then tracks him down. He finds out how Mysterio framed him, and now he has become obsessed with defeating Spider-Man. Can Spider-Man stop a foe who has been studying Spider-Man for months and is a magician also? So, you are wondering, how did I like Mysterio? I loved it. Maybe love is too strong of a word, but the reimagination of his past was so interesting, making more of a Spider-Man archenemy than just another guy in a cool costume. I think this supervillain origin episode stands up to ones with Dr. Octopus and Venom's. His origin is he almost destroyed a helicopter and injured a bunch of workers on a movie set. Luckily, Spider-Man was there. Mysterio, back then as Quentin Beck, wanted a bigger explosion for a movie, and he hit a motor and the special effect equipment. He would have gotten away with it too, if Spidey wasn't there to stop him. I'll get even with you if it's the last thing I do. Mysterio this time has a personal connection with Spider-Man. Something from Spider-Man and Peter Parker's past. Yeah. It is a really cool thing in this episode how both of Spider-Man and Peter Parker's past comes back to haunt him in this episode. For Spidey, Quentin Beck, and for Peter Parker, Uncle Ben's memory. Then something funny happens. The detective is all like, "This is something you have trouble remembering," and then Spider-Man's all like, "Hey, this thing happens 3 times a week." The humor had a lot of standout moments for me as a kid. It was not as good as the second episode, I think, but it was a good episode. It may have been because it was also a bit of more of a serious episode, with Spider-Man being framed in it much. Mysterio and the gadgets he used were interesting as a kid, and even now, like his holocubes, able to project holographic fake scenes as big as being in a jungle in one episode. It is how he made things, like a roof fall in where he first appeared, happen. The end of the episode had Mysterio be desperate and use a lot of his fighting tricks he uses in the comics. The one with making there appear to be multiple Mysterios is my favorite. I love the detail of having each one have a different blaster. Anytime this happens, it reminds me of the comic cover Amazing Spider-Man issue 198. Spider-Man uses his spider sense to solve that trick. At the end, Mysterio is captured, and there's a funny line with JJJ getting owned by Detective Lee, and Mary Jane forgives Peter for ignoring her. Overall, it is a nice wrap-up to the episode. It must hurt Jameson to know someone on the police force who is on Spider-Man's side. I really like this episode's pace. I think it hardly gets boring, and I was surprised I thought it would be. At the end, Mary Jane says something about making sense out of life. It kind of comes from out of nowhere, but anyway. Mysterio's costume looked amazing. This is what I see when I think of Mysterio. He could have used his belt for something, but whatever. It's better than his first appearance outfit by far. Actually, the outfit he wears when he fights Ben Reilly, my channel icon, is the comic cover of the first issue of the 3-part. That costume he wears in it is my least favorite one, but that's all for another day. Mysterio was voiced by Greg Berger. I love the superiority of how he talks, and the way he separates words out makes him sound kind of like a robot, like he's unhuman. Unhuman. Terry Lee was voiced by Dawn Lewis. She did great, kind of in charge, but also at certain parts. Like when they were figuring out Mysterio's identity, she was friendly with Spider-Man. Overall, as a kid, I would have put this in the lower half of the season, maybe one of the 3 worst episodes, and I still might think that. Not because I hate this episode, just the others were so much better in their stories and introducing new characters. It was a straightforward episode. Mysterio was a smart villain going up against a smart hero. I think Terry Lee was very interesting in this episode, and there should have been a lot more to her in the series, kind of like the show's version of Jean DeWolf. When Spider-Man was in the warehouse going after Mysterio, I thought all the different animatronics were cool, and something I never thought I'd see Spider-Man face in animation back then. I rate this episode a 6 out of 10. I don't know, should I do points in my ratings? If I did, it would be a 6.5. Anyway, it was a solid episode, and it may have been better if before I reviewed this I didn't have a preconception of it being bad. I loved the look of everyone in the episode. Spider-Man's costume seemed a bit slimmer. Oops. It set up a lot of good things to happen in future episodes, like a new imposter Spider-Man without Mysterio, Aunt May hating Spider-Man and then finding out that her nephew is Spider-Man, Jane DeWolf stuff, etc. Anyway, remember to like and subscribe. Comment down below anything really. I really enjoy making these, and I'm glad to see more and more coming out. So with that said, bye guys, and have a good day.